This morning you are in for an incredible treat. We have Reverend Andy and Reverend Bonnie Anderson here. They're from Roseburg, Oregon, but they're hardly ever in Roseburg, Oregon. They're always traveling with their unique blend of Reverend Andy's wonderful R&B music, get your feet stomping, get you up and moving, and Reverend Bonnie's wonderful talks and her gift of soul collage. I'm going to take the soul collage thing today because I want to know what is in my soul's next step. What am I to be doing? How can I vision the future for myself from a spiritual perspective? And she's a master at this, so if you have time this afternoon, please do this. Partake in it. Andy hails from Texas and was in a musical family, and they all played instruments and sang, so all of this comes so naturally to him. And together in their ministry, they've had a ministry in Roseburg, but now they are traveling and offering their great gifts, and we're just really honored to have them. So please join me in welcoming Reverend Bonnie and Reverend Andy Anderson.
I can't really do this behind, we'll stand this way rather than the other way. If you have a portable mic, I can use that. I can start on this. So, yeah. Excuse me. So, I'm here today to talk about Rumi. I am a real lover of Rumi poetry. He takes us so deep and he's so universal. And I started thinking, how in the world is this poet he was born 811 years ago, so popular now? You know, he's actually a best-selling author in the United States now, Rumi is. And I noticed whenever I give a talk and I read a Rumi quote, I feel almost like a collective gasp in the audience. Everybody kind of goes, oh, and goes within. So Rumi brings us into ourselves in a wonderful way. And Rumi also was a mystic. He was a mystic, and a mystic is one that comes from inner wisdom of the heart, not necessarily the head where we like to figure everything out, but from the heart, from going within. And I believe Ernest Holmes was a mystic. And he said this: a mystic is one who intuitively perceives truth and who, without mental process, arrives at spiritual realizations. It is from the teachings of the great mystics that the best in the philosophy of the world has come. How's that? He's going to fix it. It's a little hot. So a mystic is one, what does Holmes say, who perceives truth, intuitively perceives truth without mental process. This is the wisdom of the heart. This is what we know underneath, all the things that we learned, all the things that we know, all the facts and figures that we know, and tuning into the heart. That is what Rumi is about. And so I decided to look at Rumi as a tool for helping us with transformation. As Reverend Mary said, she's thinking about what soul's calling her to that next step. And I think a lot of us feel that sometimes. What's next for me? What am I in the process of transforming? And Rumi is all about transformation. But what is transformation? It's about Sometimes it's about taking a new path, turning in a new direction and taking a new path. Sometimes it's about making a new choice, making a choice that we wouldn't normally make, something different. It may surprise the people around us. And sometimes it's about surrendering. Often it's about letting go of those habits and those beliefs and sometimes people in our lives that no longer serve us, that surrender. And sometimes transformation can occur through challenges, can't it? Challenges in our lives. Sometimes a health challenge or a death or something happens in our life that makes us all of a sudden stop and say, what am I doing here? I'll have to tell you, it's a long story about the broken bone in my foot, but it's part of my transformation process. I decided to take a new path and I immediately fell, and the foot means moving forward. So, the body listens to all those things that we say. But Rumi says this, and I love this: roar, lion of the heart, and tear me open. Roar, lion of the heart, and tear me open. That's a very courageous thing to say, a very transformative thing to say. His poetry is very simple and universal. It deeply touches us. Andy's going to play a song in a minute. So we have some friends. You may have met them sometime. You can go to the piano now, please. Andy's going to play a song that I'll tell you about right now. We have some good friends, Lisa Ferraro and Etika Luckett. And sadly, Etika recently made her transition. But they are two singer-songwriters who travel a lot in the Centers for Spiritual Living circuit, and they're wonderful creative joys. And when they first started collaborating, they decided to put Rumi to music. So they wrote a whole CD called Ruby, you can find it online, using Rumi lyrics and putting them to amazing music that just takes you so deep. And they actually traveled to Turkey with a Rumi expert and really got into the culture and really got into the emotion and the culture of the place. And so Andy's going to share with you one of the songs that they wrote. And I'm going to read you a couple lines from it. It's called The Root of Yourself. Don't go away, come near. Don't be faithless, be faithful. Find the antidote in the venom. Come to the root of yourself. You are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it isn't true? We see it in your eyes. Come to the root of yourself.
Come to the root of yourself. Love is a stranger with a language it rarely understood. At home, in the midst of danger, come to the root of yourself. Get hold of selflessness. Your ego is left behind. Our love is made defenseless. Come to the root of yourself. Open your hidden eyes. You are a seal on a treasure, and you're a diamond light. Come to the root of yourself. You've come from the presence of a friend, a little drunk but gentle, and stilling our hearts with that look so full of fire. Come to the root of yourself. Surely we've met before, since the beginning of time. The table was set, and glory, glory, what a rare wine. Glory, glory, what a rare wine. Glory, glory, what a rare wine.
So Rumi inspired amazing music. That's from an album called Ruby that I highly recommend you go online and purchase. Thank you, Andy. That was wonderful. And Damien laid the table so beautifully with that Rumi reading, too. It was just beautiful. So you get the feeling of Rumi in the room. Rumi's in the room. Actually, Etika and Lisa nicknamed their album Rumi Tunes. But so there's a wonderful example of transformation that you're all really familiar with that I just want to talk about a little bit. It's one that it's the story of the butterfly, the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. It's something that we teach our preschoolers. You know, they bring in the caterpillars and they put them in a little thing and they watch them grow and they watch them emerge and fly free. But it's such a powerful story. So you have a caterpillar that's crawling on the ground, maybe crawling up a weed or the side of a tree, and it's looking at the world through caterpillar eyes. Its experience of life is pretty much on the ground. It's not a high experience. It's pretty much, even when it gets up on a weed, it's kind of looking in front of itself. But at some point in that caterpillar's life, it's getting ready to transform. So it starts eating ravenously. It eats everything it can find. It eats and grows and grows. And then when it sheds its skin several times, which we need to do in transformation, and then at some point, it has this inner direction, when it gets so big, to attach itself to a tree or a limb upside down. And when it does that, it starts weaving this beautiful cocoon that will be the casing and the protection when it goes through this metamorphosis. And the interesting thing about butterflies, about caterpillars, is that when they're in the caterpillar stage, they have these imaginal cells, scientists call them, imaginal cells. And when they begin to transform in the cocoon, these imaginal cells wake up and start growing. And the imaginal cells are the ones that see the butterfly. So at first, the immune system of the caterpillar thinks that these are invading cells, so they attack them. And then after a while, the imaginal cells multiply and they start to clump together, and they get so numerous that they can't be fought anymore, and they take over. And then the caterpillar becomes sort of like what do they say it is? It's a goop. It turns into a goop that sustains the butterfly, the new growth, so that all that old body just becomes food for the next manifestation. And these cells are totally different from the caterpillar cells. The imaginal cells they're butterfly cells. They're totally different. They have a different frequency. They vibrate at a different frequency. So at some point, organically, the butterfly knows it's time to emerge from the cocoon. It grows and grows, it gets tighter in that small cocoon, and this cocoon gets thinner, and it's time to emerge. So they fight their way out of the cocoon. And sometimes people will see them and say, oh, I'm going to help this cocoon, this butterfly, and help it out of the cocoon. The poor thing's fighting to get out. Let me help it. And guess what happens? It dies sometimes, because the butterfly needs that stretching of its muscles. It needs to strengthen itself by breaking away from that old cocoon. So then the imaginal cells have totally taken over, and you have the transformation into this beautiful gossamer butterfly. And then you have the butterfly perspective on life, which is higher, which is, sees the colors of the flowers. It's attracted to the flowers. It's flying over things. It's even migrating hundreds or thousands of miles, some of them. So it's totally changed. And this struggle towards freedom has an organic timing. It knows when it's time. It just knows. So, transformation is an organic thing, and sometimes we feel that in ourselves, that it's time to transform. And when we don't take action on it, sometimes our body reminds us, or other things. When our daughter-in-law made her transition, 5 or 6 years ago now, at 33 suddenly, and left our son and two boys, it was a transformative moment for Andy and I, because we had to stop and look at our lives and say, nobody knows how long we're here for. Are we really doing what we love? So that was something that caused us a big transformation in our lives. But I'm suggesting today that you use Rumi to help you in your transformation. That you find a Rumi quote or a Rumi poem and find a thread that you can follow. You can go deeply into his words. You can journal or just think. And you know what? If you're going to come from the heart like Rumi, you have to be still. We're not going to hear that heart speaking to us if we're living our busy lives. We're going here and there. We're doing 5 things at once, running around. We're not going to hear it. So it's necessary for us in a time of transformation to slow down and listen. So Rumi said this: "You lack a foot to travel? Then journey into yourself. That leads to transformation of dust into pure gold." So what does it mean to lack the foot to travel? What does it mean to journey into yourself? That's what Rumi tells us again and again, and Ernest Holmes tells us again and again. All of the wisdom is within. And when we begin to call upon it, it's like those imaginal cells. They start to wake up. And at first, it's not easy. It may involve a process of disintegration, things feeling like things are falling apart. He says, when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. So I invite you to attend the Soul Collage workshop this afternoon too, because we pick images from the soul. We don't pick them from our head, we pick them from our soul and collage them, and you end up with something very powerful calling from your soul. Rumi talks about love a lot, and love is really the impetus for transformation, isn't it? And he says, this is love. Fly towards a secret sky to cause 100 veils to fall each moment. First, let go of life. Finally, to take a step without feet. Cause 100 veils to fall each moment. When we transform, we sometimes have to let those veils of who we aren't fall away. The veils that hide the truth from us. So what are your veils? You could take this little statement and work with it for a long time. It's so juicy. Rumi tells us to set our life on fire. And if you've ever sat by a campfire and watched the transformative power of fire, you know, you have some logs that are just sitting there inert, and you light a fire and it becomes color and heat, and it changes colors and it changes shapes and it dances. That's what transformation is. And Rumi tells us to set our life on fire. And he tells us to seek those who fan your flame. Do you have friends that encourage your fire, that fan your flames? Those are the ones you want to get in touch with when you're transforming, not the ones that's going to pour cold water on that fire. Because sometimes when we catch fire, our loved ones, it scares them. It scares some people because we're changing. And that becomes frightening. So seek out those people, he says, that fan your flames. Holmes says, as the Christ awakens, the divine spark, a shot from the central fires of the universal flame, is able to warm other souls by the radiance of its own unfoldment. So as you wake up and transform, you light the way for others. Others see you. You might not even know they're watching you. And it sheds the light on them, and they catch that spark, and they have the courage to go forward, just like someone probably encouraged you at some time. So it's catchy. It not only changes you, it changes the world. So here's one that I really like. Well, first of all, let me tell you that sometimes we get caught up in what other people are going to think about us, right? I can't do that. What will people think? I can't do that. They might not like it. They might not like me. I have to stay safe and stay the same. Where sometimes we have to break out of that. And I've struggled with that myself. When I was a new minister in Roseburg, I wanted everyone to like me. And I did everything I could to have everybody like me. But guess what? That doesn't work. Especially for a minister, because just the nature of the job, there are some people who are not going to like you. And like someone said, probably 50% of the people aren't going to like you anyway, so who cares? Who cares? But holding on to that, worrying about what other people think, can be a great barrier to transformation. So this is what Rumi says about that. Start a huge, foolish project like Noah. It makes absolutely no difference what people think of you. Like Noah. I mean, Noah, do you think people thought he was crazy when he started building a boat when there was no water? When he started gathering the animals up? He didn't care what people thought. And those people who make the difference in the world are able to break out from that approval seeking and do it their way. If you listen to your heart and go within, as Rumi says, that's where the courage comes to step forth. He encourages us to go beyond our boundaries, the boundaries we have set for ourselves, to have the butterfly consciousness and vision of the world instead of the caterpillar. We've all had that caterpillar feeling before when we just nose to the grindstone, get our work done, go to work, do what we need to do the dishes. But sometimes you need to rise above that and start and look at the world from above, from a higher perspective of freedom. Rumi says, you were born with potential. You were born with goodness and trust. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. Take this in. You were born with wings. You are not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. So let's go within. And know this morning that we are one with all that is. We are one with the heart messages, the intuitive wisdom, divine wisdom that flows into us always. We are one with spirit. And we listen. We listen to that small, still voice that speaks the truth. We listen to that small, still voice that activates those imaginal cells of greatness. We ask ourselves, what am I being called to do? We allow our lives to be caught on fire, for the fire of spirit to transform us in an elegant and beautiful way, to be used by God to the highest purposes, to be an example for others of stepping out without feet. We know that we are greater than we think we are. We were born to greatness, and that we have wings. There is a candle in your heart ready to be kindled. There is a void in your soul ready to be filled. Do you feel it? I am so grateful for these wisdom words of Rumi. I am so grateful for the amazing story of the caterpillar to the butterfly, that that nature gives us. I'm so grateful for this teaching, which reminds us of the truth every minute of every day. And I vow to become still and to allow the words of Spirit to enter my heart and take action like Noah. So I release this now into the fertile soil of mind. I plant these seeds of greatness, of transformation, and allow it to unfold with grace and ease and love. And so it is.